You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
All right. I don't care where you live. If you live outside of Australia, more than likely, your COVID restrictions are going to be way, way less than what Australia is experiencing right now. If you haven't followed the Australian, how they're handling COVID, it is insane. And you might have seen some, protests, anti-COVID lockdown restrictions protests across Europe, maybe a little France action, maybe a little Greece, maybe Germany, the UK, all out in the streets protesting because mandatory vaccines, all kinds of, just stuff going on. But in Australia, Australia's city capital, Canberra, they're enforcing a snap lockdown after you got it one new COVID case. One. Uno. Not dos. Uno. One case. 7-day snap lockdown. So wherever you live, thank your lucky stars, you're not in Canberra. Because this is crazy. They're looking for a 0 transmission rate, 0 cases. You're just not going to get that, right? Now, granted, Australia it's an island. It's a continent island. And they can look to achieve this because if you don't let anybody in on your island, effectively, you should be able to, eradicate any threat from the Rona if you just keep everybody locked down in their homes. And that's exactly what they're experiencing. Very few cases. Death rate, almost non-existent. Relative to what we've got going here in the United States, 100,000 cases a day, something like that. And we're just kind of just brushing that off. And we've got Lollapalooza going. We got 385,000 people that attended Lollapalooza just a couple of weeks ago. And we're like, yeah, you got a couple hundred cases come out of that. I thought that was weird too. That just seemed like an incredibly small amount of cases. But, 90% of the people there are vaccinated. I don't know. But one case, we've literally got one case in Australia's capital city, 7-day lockdown. You guys locked down at home. Don't go anywhere. Just extreme. If you want a lot of you guys probably already follow Sky News out of Australia. They've got some really just straight up reasonable reporting. Alan Jones, he's just like, all right, here's how it is. This is reasonable. Here's how I see it. And it's just, you think you're just listening to the voice of reason. And the reason it sounds that way is because the fear mongering going on in Australia is just mind blowing. One case, lock a big town down. 400,000 population in the city, Canberra. Lock them down for a week. We got one case. Good Lord. All right, let's get into this. Before we do, if you're new here, my name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies. I am half Australian. My mother is Australian. So I got to read this story. And I've got some pull here. Half my family's in Australia. I've got friends and family there. I've got cousins there. Uncle's still alive. And I visited, quite a number of times. And I was there in 2015 visiting my good friend Gavin, who sent me this article. And that's why I'm reading it. So Gavin, thanks for sending. Sorry this is going on in your country. This sucks. Canberra, Australia's capital with a population of 400,000, will likely go into a snap lockdown after it was revealed that there was uno new case of COVID, according to reports Wednesday night from the country. For the sake of your health, your family's health, and for the health of the community, it's critical that Canberrans take every precaution they can over the coming days. Over one case. One case. How many cases do you think are going on in India right now? Yeah. More than one, I'm going to hazard a guess. The UK, is there more than one case going on in the United Kingdom right now? I believe there is. Ooh, that could be tragic. And it's mind-boggling. The report said the lockdown will last 7 days. The person who was infected was a man in his 20s, and officials are unclear how he came down with the virus and listed a number of possible exposure sites. So if you're in Australia and you want to go into a store, you've got an app on your phone where you got to scan in. That's what you got to do. Most cities. Nutty. We're not there yet here in the United States, but if you don't think it's possible, ask somebody in Australia how this is working out, how this is going, how they feel about that. One guy, they can literally get this down to one guy. The person who was infected was a man in his 20s, and officials are unclear how he came down with the virus and listed a number of possible exposure sites. The report called the diagnosis, get this, the most serious public health risk the Australian Capital Territory faced in a year. Uno, one case. One case is the most serious public health risk the Australian capital has faced in a year. One case of COVID. Wow. That seems extreme to me, but there again, I live in Seattle, and yeah, we have more than one case every day. You have more than a good friend of mine tested positive yesterday. Tested positive. All right, you got the Rona. Better hunker down. Yeah. I mean, this is just ongoing. We're in a pandemic that's going to happen. Yeah, you want to try and mitigate the risk, but shutting down entire populations over one case does seem a bit extreme, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel a little heavy-handed? To me, it certainly does. Videos emerged on social media showing the now familiar sight of customers lined up in supermarkets preparing to hunker down due to another government mandate. Protests have broken out in major cities across Australia over COVID-19 restrictions. Ezra Levant, the publisher of Rebel News, that's a good title for a news company. I like that. Rebel News with a rebel yell. Which cried more and more and more. Rebel News, who has been critical of lockdowns, took to Twitter to criticize the decision. One case, he wrote. he's in on my term. Uno. They locked down because of one case. So, of course, they'll do this again and again. And every once in a while, your prison wardens will let you go for a walk in the yard, and you'll thank them for the privilege. Sir, may I have another, please? That's what we're hinting at here. It's what we're hinting at. Residents in the city will likely be told to stay inside their homes for the next 7 days and wear masks in public. The abc.net.au report said it's been over 1 year since the last locally acquired case. They haven't had a case in a year, and they're going to go into a lockdown over one recently. How long can that go on? Is that sustainable? Is that sustainable in the economy? Difficult. Tricky. Uno. The virus only transmits when people move around and come into contact with each other, so the objective here is to reduce the movement of people and to reduce the transmission potential of this outbreak, Barr said, according to The Guardian. That is why we're going into a lockdown. All right. What about the negative effects of a lockdown to a population the size of 400,000 people over uno? Is that a little bit imbalanced? I mean, I'm not really a social justice warrior kind of guy, but I'd have to say that this doesn't make any sense at all. This doesn't make any sense at all. None whatsoever. It's extreme. Yeah. I think anybody else here in the United States would also go, what? What are you doing there? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. But in a society like Australia, they're getting away with it because the government can just kind of make the calls. They're doing what they're doing. And the citizens don't really have much of the ability to stand up and say no. They've also outlawed protesting. Protesting, no go. Probably because they saw what happened with the peaceful protesting here in the United States. And they're like, ooh, we don't want that either. Even if people are protesting over the rights that they have to leave their home. Could you imagine if we had a lockdown here in the United States over one case? Oh, that would be civil war right then and there. You're doing what? Yeah, that's a no-go. I mean, we've got enough of an issue with like Texas and Florida doing their own thing, and these mask mandates and governors putting in legislature and stuff where they're saying, yeah, the mask mandates, oh, no, sirree, we're not doing that. And then you've got local government going, oh, we're going to send our kids to school with masks because, just this enormous tug of war, right? But in Australia, they are literally going for 0 COVID cases. And so how long is that going to go on? We're going to have this with us for what? Years. You can't eradicate the flu. You can't. So trying to eradicate COVID, I mean, I get what they're saying. They're really trying to restrict the whole number of cases, but reacting like this with the 7-day lockdown to 1 case, that does feel a little extreme. But if you look at like a city like Sydney, they've had similar lockdowns over, relatively the same number, not a 1 case of COVID, but you get 25, they freak out, absolute meltdown, freak out. Just, oh my gosh, we're inundated. Nah, inundated is like 100,000 a day. That's more along the lines of, and obviously United States, Australia's we've got 330 million people in the United States, something like that. Don't crush me if I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. In Australia, you've got a country population of 25 million, so less than a tenth of the population. When they get a couple of cases, they just flip out because they have literally shut down travel from and to other countries. And they're, an island, and they've got her locked down. And so they've got this mindset of 1 case is the greatest health, threat in their city. I would say people have been dying in that city of other things, and one dude getting the Rona, yeah, you're just going to have to live with that. You're going to have to live with, several hundred, maybe thousands of cases if you want to return to normal. That's just what you're going to have to deal with. But in Australia, since they basically locked their borders down, here's what you got. You got a situation where the government's just absolutely controlling things. 1 case, lockdown, folks. Not good. Lockdown. We need to just stay at home, wear your masks. If you absolutely have to go out, in Sydney, they've got police officers patrolling the streets. They will follow people. They'll follow people. Because, you shouldn't be on the phone. You shouldn't be talking to people. You shouldn't be walking around. You should be at home where there's no chance of the Rona getting you. 1 case. Absolutely crazy. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense at all. And yet that's what they've got going. So whatever you've got going in your hometown, be thankful. It's not like Canberra in Australia. Whew, not good. All right. This is a short podcast, but it's also an international one. I went to Australia. I went to Down Under. And it's kind of one of those things where, okay, why are we doing this in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast? To give us a little bit of a world view of, you think you got things bad at your hometown? You think you've got mandates bad? Well, you got more than 1 case, and you're not in a 7-day lockdown. So, maybe sometimes thank your lucky stars that you're not living elsewhere. You think, my hometown is terrible. My state is terrible. Seattle is terrible. State of Washington is terrible. Ain't that bad. There's always something worse. The grass is always less greener somewhere else. So be thankful of that. And check in on Sky News in Australia. They'll give you the real scoop. All right. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for being part of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I will catch up with you soon. Until then, stay safe. Uno. That's what I'm leaving you with on this podcast. Uno. Talk soon. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.